So being someone that is into filmmaking, I love watching behind the scenes on how movies are made and TV shows are made. During lockdown, around the start of lockdown, I started watching Game of Thrones, and bearing in mind I'd never thought to try and watch this show, because I don't know why. Actually, I don't like getting too involved in TV shows, because I end up just having no social life and just binge watching it. But I ended up watching one episode a day of Game of Thrones, and I just finished every season, and I don't know what to do with myself now. Like, I'm upset. Like, I want there to be more, and I just I'm going really off topic here. Let's roll the intro. So this week's video is all about sports cars, luxury cars, supercars. I'm going to be giving you guys 5 or more of my top tips to get you out there shooting absolutely epic photos of cars. And these are all tips that I have taken from my experience as well. So without further ado, let's get into tip number 1. How do you even get a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or a McLaren? How do you get a luxury car? And the answer to that, my friends, is networking. Start with your friends and family. Maybe someone in your network actually owns a really expensive sports car that you can go and shoot for the day, whether it be a friend of a friend or a friend of a family member, or Keith that lives 10 doors down who has a really nice Bentley. You can hit up Keith and say, yo, can I borrow your Bentley for the day and get some really cool photos? And you both benefit from that because you get really cool photos for your portfolio. Keith gets really sick photos of his Bentley that he can show his mates. So I don't know, I think it's just all about networking, not being afraid to go out and network. If you actually don't know anyone that owns a sports car, that's when you can go over to websites like Auto-Trader, and you can actually message people that are trying to sell their cars. Maybe someone's trying to sell a Porsche or a Lambo, and you can message them and say, hiya, can I shoot some photos of your car? And then maybe they'll use those photos to sell their car and put it up on Auto-Trader, so that they've got some really nice photos to put on their website so that they can sell the car. And then you've got, again, more photos for your portfolio. And then maybe that person who is trying to sell that luxury sports car might know someone else that has a luxury sports car that you can maybe get in contact with and shoot. So it's all about networking, and networking, I feel, is one of the most important things when it comes down to photography or any sort of photography subject. I'd say networking is very important. So that is my first tip, top tip, number 1 on the list, networking. The next area we are going to cover is location, and this is probably one of the most annoying and frustrating things to have to take into consideration when shooting a luxury car, because a lot of the time when you go out and you are by yourself, you don't have a car with you, and you just get the tube up to your local city or wherever you live. You can go on the tube, you can get a taxi, you can just go and shoot and have locations in mind and just be like, oh, I'm going to go to this cool spot in the middle of London where the Gherkin is, for example, which is a really famous building in London. You can just go there on foot and don't have to worry about driving up there. Whereas if you're in a car, you can't just stop your car in the middle of the road and take a photo by the Gherkin, because it's never going to happen. Like, it's never going to happen unless you go there at like 4 a.m. If you have a luxury sports car and you stop at a location which is really cool and industrial, almost like a building site, majority of the time a security guard is going to come up to you and say, you know, sick car, but get the off of our property because you're not supposed to be there at the end of the day. Now, if you're just driving around and you want to go and shoot and you don't even have a location in mind, just be prepared to be really quick. So let's say you have to set up the car and you have to put it in an area that's quite busy and that a car shouldn't really be. And a good example of this is when I was in LA near the Beverly Hills Hotel, and we had a Lamborghini Aventador, and I wanted to put it in the middle of the road, so I had the palm trees either side. So I had to have a driver that was really quick and just pull up in the middle of the road. I get out, snap the photos, get as many angles as I can, get back in the car and go before I start attracting any attention or security turns up. So just remember, you need to be as quick as possible if you do go to locations where you shouldn't actually be. Another tip to go alongside that is try and match the location to the car. Very similar to how I said in my previous video about streetwear, try and match your outfit to your surroundings. Do the same thing but with car photography. So try and match the car to the location. So that's just a little tip to just go alongside the whole location topic of discussion. I'm going to talk a little bit now about gear, because I'm sure many of you watching this may be wondering what gear should you use. And for me, I use my Sony a7R II because it has very high megapixel, which allows me to actually blow up the photo to be a very big, almost billboard size. If I am doing a photo shoot for a company, I can actually give them that option to kind of blow up the photo as big as they want it to. Now, when it comes down to the lenses that I use, I don't like to go any wider than 16mm, and I'd say between 16 and 50mm. Anything between those two focal lengths, I personally would recommend recommend for car photos. For me, I either go 16 to 35, 24mm, or 50 or 35. So those are kind of like the 4 options that I usually pick when I'm gonna go and take photos of cars. I would really recommend, if you are on a tight budget, and I did mention this in my previous video, to maybe get a 50mm 1.8 pancake lens. They are about that big. They're not huge lenses, but they're very, very cheap. And I had one for about 2 years before I even had my Sony. Before I even started YouTube, I had a 50mm pancake. If you do want to get a prime lens and you don't have a lot of money to spend, I would recommend the 50mm 1.8. When it comes down to shooting the interior of the car, you don't so much have to rely on the location, because obviously you're shooting the inside. So the location doesn't matter as much. As long as you're in some really nice soft light, the interior will look good. Sometimes I shoot through the car windows and the little gap behind the headrest to create some foreground in the interior images. So you can just get really, really creative with your angles, shooting through objects around the car and shooting through windows and things around you. Just as long as you get creative with those angles, can make up for a lot more dynamic shots when you're shooting the interior of the car to really pick up those fine details on the inside design. Moving on now to the next tip, and that is to get low and work your angles. When you use that technique of getting really low to the ground and using your angles, you are going to really show off the craftsmanship and the design of that car that the designers and the people that have made the car have intended. And I'm sure many of you sitting there watching right now are probably thinking, really, Ben, that's one of your points? And yes, that is one of my points, because that will ultimately tell the difference between a pro and amateur photographer if you just think about the angles. Now finally, tip number 5, and this is probably quite obvious, but just bear with me here. Show the car in motion. A lot of the time you don't always want to have the car parked in a cool location, and yes, that does look good a majority of the time, but also show the car in action. Try and match your shutter speed to the speed of the car so you get a really, really nice motion blur. For example, if your car is going 40 miles an hour, try and get your shutter to be 1/40. If it's going 30 miles an hour, 1/30, you get the point. I'm going to share with you guys now 2 photographers who are absolutely incredible at capturing motion blur in car photography. That is Aaron B. Hall and Guy with a Camera 415. Both of these photographers I follow. I would recommend you guys go and follow them because their pictures are incredible and they do such a good job at capturing all the fine detailing in the cars when they are moving. Aaron's got some amazing photos of like raptors in the desert and there's like dust and stuff flying all over the screen. Guy with a Camera, what is your actual name? Because I'm yet to find out. Daniel from San Francisco, he does an amazing job. Actually, I'm gonna look at one now, I just saw that. He does such a good job at capturing motion blur. This is just incredible. I would highly recommend you following them. So that is the final tip, motion blur. It is like 31 degrees outside. I feel like I'm in a sauna and I'm wearing a hoodie. What's wrong with me? So on that note, if you guys did like this video, please hit the like button, leave a comment down below, hit the bell so you are notified for any future video that is released every single week. I'll see you all very, very soon in the next one. Take care. Peace. Oh wait, don't forget to follow me on Instagram as well. I just remembered. Follow me on Instagram. I'm going to put it on here. Send me a DM. Tell you came from YouTube. All that good stuff. Go. All right, I'm going now. Bye.